Well, it's the first Friday, and it happens to be February 1st. So the timing is perfect to do the Friday, the February edition of What to Read with Chris Hall from McNally Robinson Booksellers. Hey, happy February.
Happy February, Michael.
Welcome back again.
Thank you.
How's it going? How are things going at the store with the new shop, all the renovations you guys have done?
Yes, we've opened up to a second window in the Forks. It looks brilliant. I haven't actually gotten there yet.
Oh.
Been so busy with...
So you've heard that it looks brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. All reports.
Hearsay.
Photos. Yeah, I have to get down there to see it for myself. But yeah, we just opened it up into a true rectangle shape with two windows where formerly there was one. So yeah, windows make a big difference.
So it's all done, officially finished and everything?
Yeah.
All the dust has been cleared up? And
books are all moved in. Other things as well. Gives us a little bit more space, but a little bit more space to move around, I think, too.
Okay. Well, you're here to talk about books. So let's just dig right in. We're going to start with one called Asymmetry by Lisa Halliday. Tell us about that one.
Absolutely. This is a new one, or a debut by Lisa Halliday, Asymmetry. It is... it was the talk of the year last year. It was on several awards lists and best of lists and so on, and I rightly so, I think. It's told in three different parts. The first one, a young author or aspiring writer, Alice, meets and then develops a relationship with a much older writer named Ezra Blazer, who is, by all reports, pretty much Philip Roth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very much like him anyway. And so so that's the first part. The second part is a story about an Iraqi-American who is trying to fly through London. He has a brief stopover. He was going to stay with friends, and then he wants to go on to Iraq. And he's stopped, and he spends his section in the Heathrow airport because the immigration folks are a bit skeptical and suspicious, so they're asking him a lot of questions over the course of a number of days. And then the third... Is
that fact or fiction?
Well, good
Non-fiction.
question. Yeah, very much. Yeah, very much in the news. And then the third section, I won't give too much away. It's an important part of the book. But it's it's a well-told story, certainly at that level, but it really is about asymmetry of power dynamics between a young woman and an older, established male, young writer and established writer, and then somebody who's non-white and white, and just the assumptions one makes about one's power and just the ease with which one goes through life, or the opposite. It's kind of really interesting opportunity for a reader to put themselves in a few different positions and learn how other people might experience the world.
Well, I think we all experience that in our life, right? I mean, the balance of power in so many different things we do, and it's all about trying to balance. Yeah, make it balance things out a little bit. So
and sometimes when you have the power, it's hard to know how easy things are, and you take it for granted until you think about it. So here's an opportunity to think about it.
So I was noticing in the books you've chosen, I believe that 4 out of 5 are fiction.
That's
and
true.
This is the only one, this non-fiction, which is kind of a neat thing, Craftfulness, Mend Yourself by Making Things. Yeah,
this is a book that came across our radar, looked really interesting, and I think it is. It's I'll read from the back to get things, as they say, right out of the way. We should get this right out of the way, they say. Craftfulness is not a crafting book. So it's not a book with patterns or how to knit and things like that, but it is about why or why you should
have a hobby,
have a
crafting hobby, kind
but
of,
not just a hobby, but a hands-on hobby, like a physical something to do with your hands.
Besides your phone.
That's a good point.
Because everybody's on their phone.
I do not believe they mean texting. Yes. No, it's about how that is healthy, and both mental health and physical health, to calm down and focus on something and turn that world off that comes in through your phone. Maybe I think it's tied into the resurgence of people cooking for themselves, and the craft kind of people get into making coffee in a very specific kind of way.
What do you do?
I have a very, that might take some time to talk about how I make my coffee.
Oh, it's coffee. Is that your crafting thing? That's what I mean. What's your crafting thing?
I cook, and I make coffee every morning.
Okay.
So I guess I'm giving my own examples.
I like gemstones. I bought myself this machine that will help, shape and polish gemstones and stuff like that. So it's this thing I set up on our dining room table. Yeah. I take over the dining room table, and I do all these things with gemstones, make necklaces and stuff. It's awesome. I love it. And I really really, I think it is. It's if people who don't necessarily have time or do something, it's always worth trying to find a few minutes a day to escape, I guess, into a project.
Too, and maybe even more so now. But I mean, maybe always. But the assumption we would have made 5 or 10 years ago, at least in the bookstore, is that we wouldn't be selling craft books or cookbooks or things like that, because you just get it online, or you'd stop doing that. And but quite the opposite. If anything, we see evidence of even more crafting. You see young women knitting in areas. I mean, young men knit. There's all kinds of crafts that are surging. Pottery making. I mean, you name it.
When you go to a lot of these different sales, around town and things like that, and probably in your store as well, you see a lot of locally handmade, homemade kind of things, and I think it's great. I think it's an awesome trend. So that looks like an interesting book, sort of explaining the theory behind it, right?
The theory, the inspiration. Like, I wouldn't say theory as a scary word, but just in terms of
thoughts.
Exactly. Just being thoughtful about it and why it's good.
I'm interested in that one. Craftfulness. Mend yourself by making things. Back to fiction.
Yeah, this is a book called The Lost Children Archive. The author's named Valeria Luiselli. This is an example of how booksellers all over, but certainly at McNally Robinson, spot rising talent from a long way away. And so we knew about Luiselli from previous books. The Story of My Teeth was one.
Story of My Teeth.
I know. It's a little bit out there. It's a little bit, some of her previous ones especially. This one's just a very thoughtful book itself. A good segue maybe from the last one. It's about a road trip, a woman and her daughter, and a man who she's having a relationship, and his son. So not her son and not his daughter, but a family of sorts. They go on a road trip from New York to Arizona for a variety of reasons I won't get into. But they're both, and it's hard to describe, I've never heard of such a thing, but they make their living making recordings, sonic recordings of landscape, or sonicscapes, I guess, of cities and rural areas. So the sounds of wind and conversation and animals and so on, just as a way to document sound. And the way it rolls through this book is just, this road trip turns into just like you're going through life, and it's just very attentive to detail and thoughtful, not quick moving, but just a way of living is what it starts to feel like. Is listen and smell and those sorts of things as
paying attention to your surroundings instead of just from one point to the next without noticing where you are at each moment.
Yeah, exactly. A very smart book, very intellectual book. So lots of things I think you can get out of it. But that's currently, at least I'm right in the middle of it. So that's currently how I'm just more like I'm feeling it more than anything. It's a good book.
That's the Lost Children Archive. Next we have Now We Shall Be Entirely Free by Andrew Miller. Yeah,
Andrew Miller is, I hesitate to call him one of my favorite authors. That would leave out so many others, but I have read a number of books by him, and I do enjoy his books. He's a very kind of, in some ways, maybe old-fashioned writer. He just tells a really good story. In this case, historical fiction. He won the Costa Book of the Year award a number of years ago for a book called Pure. So he's a very good writer. This is a book about set in 1809, and it's a English soldier, John Lacroix, who is returning from battle, and it turns out, as we discover fairly early on, so this isn't giving anything away, that he's been involved in an incident where he was the commander in charge of a group of men who go a bit crazy, do some awful things, and so he's kind of being sought for questioning, and he's just disappeared. So he's gone AWOL essentially, and so the army sends a couple guys in pursuit of him, and so he comes home to England, and then he makes his way north to Scotland, and he doesn't really know that somebody's after him. As far as he knows, he knows he's AWOL, but he doesn't realize the extent to which he's under suspicion for leading these men to what they did. So it's a story about him kind of getting away from the war more than anything in his experiences there. But he meets people along the way, including a group, a brother and two sisters, who a bit of a love story that develops, and it's just a very good read. It's a good old-fashioned storytelling.
Good old-fashioned storytelling. Okay, and we'll wrap up with one more. I'm in conversation with Chris Hall from McNally Robinson Booksellers. It is the February edition of What to Read, and we'll finish up with Fate by Ian Hamilton.
Yeah, Ian Hamilton.
Kind of like a thriller, huh?
It is, yeah, a mystery, I guess. Ian Hamilton is the author of a series of novels called the Ava Lee series. So Ava Lee is his detective in Hong Kong, I think. And so we've been fans of his for a long time. I feature him often in the newsletter, and you may have seen a display in the store. So throughout the Ava Lee series, there's been this character called Uncle. His name is Chow Tung, but he's killed off, I believe, later in the series, and I believe there was a bit of a rising up from the readers of Ian Hamilton, and so he's gone back in time, and this is the story of this Uncle Chow Tung.
I remember that sort of cut. I remember that happened with Ian Rankin too, with Rebus, right?
Absolutely. That's exactly.
Have to resurrect him or did not kill him off.
Yeah. So in Ian Hamilton's case, he's gone back, kind of almost prequels. So these are the lost decades of Uncle Chow Tung. So they're the years before the Ava Lee series resumes. So
wow, the pressure these authors are under. It was Stephen King. There was a movie about that as well. What was that movie?
Misery.
Misery. That's right. Where the one of the readers doesn't like the direction that the story's going, so let's capture that author. And anyway, oh boy, under lots of pressure.
A little less dramatic version of that.
Yeah.
Yes, certainly feeling enough pressure to make come up with
Uncle
this book.
come back.
And I believe there's plans for a trilogy or maybe beyond for Uncle Chow Tung.
Okay. All right, it's a good way to wrap things up. Thank you, Chris. All these books, of course, available at McNally Robinson. You can walk in the store, either store, or Saskatoon too. Hey, if you're happening walking through Saskatoon, you can walk into that store.
Absolutely.
And you can also check McNallyRobinson.com.
Yeah, at the Forks. You can order online, pick them up. You can get them delivered. We'll mail them to you. Lots of ways we can get you some books.
All right. I like that. Weather doesn't get in the way, huh? Weather doesn't, the cold weather and the snow doesn't get in the way.
In fact, we had better turnout.
Chris gets out there on his bike and he bikes around the city delivering the books.
Apparently we had better turnout this week for events than we'd had for a while, so people are coming out.
Yeah, they just want to get inside.
Sure they do.
All right, thanks, Chris, for coming in.
Thank
We'll see you again in March.
Absolutely.
All right, Chris Hall from McNally Robinson Booksellers, the February edition of What to Read. I'll post the interview and all the books online, and again on classic107.com. You can also go to McNallyRobinson.com for all the books there as well.